What's going on, everyone? Today we are talking top secret dynasty running back values. Normally YouTubers, they say share this video with your friends. Do not share this video with your friends. If you want some steals, if you want some deals, stick around till the very end. I say my best player for last. And before we get into it, if you guys could go down and give this video a like. I'm answering every single comment. So you guys have any fantasy football questions related to the draft, dynasty, anything, trades, please let me know down below, and subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on so you don't miss another video. It is the #1 way to support me. It's totally free, and you can always change your mind later. With that though, guys, let's hop right into it with our first player.
Where Keenum's going to try to work the ball on the boundary. Steps into it. Diggs!
And this is a player I have been all over this offseason, and it is James Conner. So again, the first player I want to talk about is James Conner, and James Conner, one of the most phenomenal values for any contending roster. I think James Conner is a great player to have if you are looking to make a championship push this year. He's not going to cost you much. He is only the running back 40, and he is one of the biggest winners post-draft that I could possibly find. He is, again, coming off the board right now as the running back 40. And the Cardinals easily could have elected to bring in another running back with the amount of draft capital they had in his most recent draft, because they ended up trading back with the Texans, securing a ton of draft capital, especially in next year's draft. But they did not elect to bring in a single running back to this offense. I mean, this offense currently consists of James Conner at the head. Then you have Corey Clement, Keontae Ingram, and Tyson Williams. None of these guys are going to be taking any serious volume from James Conner, because James Conner is simply the best running back out of all of these players. Last year, he proved that. From weeks 9 on, James Conner was the running back 5 in all of fantasy football. Let me repeat that. Let it just sink in. He was the running back 5 in all of fantasy football, behind only Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry. True 3-down workhorse running backs, guys who are going to put you in the next stratosphere of fantasy points. And the lowest of all 3 of these guys' values that I mentioned is Derrick Henry, going off the board as the running back 19 on Keep Trade Cut. Now, I'm not saying James Conner is better than Derrick Henry, worth more than Derrick Henry, but James Conner coming off the board as the RB40, again, despite the fact that this depth chart is absolutely desolate, and they elect to bring in nobody at the position. He's proven that he's had a nose for the end zone, 2 years ago having 18 total touchdowns with Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray, we don't know exactly the timeline, but even with Kyler Murray out, James Conner, the second half of last season, was arguably better without Kyler Murray. I mean, he was getting a ton more targets, 58 targets compared to 39 2 years ago. And now with Colt McCoy in this offense, he's going to be checking it down a ton. Again, we don't know when Kyler Murray is going to be back, but I don't think it matters for a guy like James Conner with the amount of volume he's going to be getting. Now, yes, they could elect to bring in someone else, another running back in his stead, but I think they more so will elect to do that if James Conner does go down with an injury, because there are so many running backs in free agency, and also this Cardinals team is 100% trying to tank. I mean, they could easily end up with the #1 and #2 picks in the draft next year, meaning they could bring in Caleb Williams and somebody like Marvin Harrison if they wanted to, and they could still not draft a running back to live out the last year of James Conner in this offense. And I think that is absolutely fine. I really want to go out and get James Conner. If you are a contending roster, I think he's totally worth the value right now. And you know me, I'm not the type of guy to go out and buy old running backs. But when James Conner is coming off the board directly behind Roschon Johnson and Tank Bigsby, guys who we don't even know if they are going to have starting roles, mid-second, early third type picks in your dynasty rookie drafts, I am so fine packaging up 2 third-rounders to go out and get James Conner if you are a contending roster, maybe even a second-rounder if you do need that last little bump. Either way, though, that is James Conner. Phenomenal situation, one of the best buy low players, and a top secret winner of the 2023 NFL Draft. Next up, we do have Rachaad White. Rachaad White, another great winner of this draft. I mean, people are expecting the Bucs to go out and bring in someone else, at least more of a Roschon Johnson type running back, where Rachaad White would primarily handle the receiving down work, and a guy like Roschon Johnson would handle most of the ground game. But that's not what happened. They elect to bring in nobody besides Sean Tucker, an undrafted free agent, who I did really like. I'll get to in another video. But either way, Sean Tucker fell all the way outside the draft due to medical concerns. I think this is more of a Justin Ross type of situation, where Justin Ross, a great talent, but because he fell outside the draft due to medical concerns, NFL teams often know more than us fantasy guys, and if they see that these medical concerns are a legitimate issue, they are not going to draft him. That's what they did. That's why Rachaad White is a huge value. The only other running backs in this offense are Chase Edmonds and Keyshawn Vaughn. Neither of these two guys are going to be stealing serious volume from Rachaad White. So Rachaad White, a huge winner of this 2023 NFL draft. Yes, they don't elect to bring in a quarterback, which is a little bit scary. You're going to be starting either Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, probably Baker Mayfield. But either way, that is fine. Baker Mayfield, somebody who probably will still check the ball down, not really a mobile quarterback in his own right, and did support CMC to some good games this past season. So, well, we might not see a huge rushing workload from Rachaad White, only averaging 3.7 yards a carry last year. He is able to get 600 or so yards on the ground and another 58 targets like he had last season. I think that is great value for somebody going off the board as the running back 21 right now in Dynasty startup drafts. I think that's absolutely fine. 24-year-old second-year running back. Yes, the situation might be a little scary long term because you don't know if they will elect to bring in another running back, especially if they do elect to draft a quarterback in next year's draft. We'll have to see, but I think he's 100% a short-term winner and could potentially be a long-term winner depending on how high the Buccaneers are picking next season. Either way, let's move on to my next player, and that is Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is somebody historically I was pretty low on. 4th round draft pick does concern me, but the Houston Texans did not elect to do much in free agency or the draft. Yes, they do bring in Devin Singletary, and I think Devin Singletary is a legitimate threat to steal some volume, but Dameon Pierce will still most likely be the running back 1 in this offense with what he was able to do last year. Now, there are still some red flags. A new coaching staff means that Dameon Pierce was not drafted by them. They might not like Dameon Pierce as much, but they did not elect to bring in a running back at all in this draft. And I think besides Singletary, you just have Mike Boone, who's not going to get any volume in this offense. So it's really just him and Singletary. And while the ceiling might not be absolutely electric for a guy like Dameon Pierce, I think the floor is great, especially in the short term. They might try and beat him into the ground, run him a ton this next season, and then elect to draft another running back. They did give up a lot of draft capital to go and get Will Anderson, and D'Amico Ryans is a defensive head coach. Will probably try and build up this defense more than this offense. They still do have a good amount of draft picks, especially because they do have the Cleveland first rounder. But again, trading up for Will Anderson does eliminate probably your first rounder that's going to be higher, so we'll have to see. But I think Dameon Pierce in the short term, huge winner. Yes, you have Singletary there, but right now, being the running back 17 on Underdog Fantasy, I think he could provide you with some good value for another year or two at least. We'll have to see the splits with Singletary, but I personally do love what the Texans did in this draft. Well, it's not perfect. Well, long term, it still is a little bit sketchy of a situation like Rachaad White. In the short term, huge winner and will provide you a great fantasy floor for this next season. Next up, I have J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, another huge winner of the NFL draft. I mean, speculation was running rampant that 1, Lamar was not going to be a Raven, and 2, that the Ravens were going to draft a running back high. And neither of those things happened. For 1, Lamar Jackson, still a Raven, getting a ton of guaranteed money, a huge contract for a former MVP, and somebody who has helped J.K. Dobbins have a pretty decent career when he's played thus far. And 2, in the NFL draft, they do not elect to bring in a running back at all, keeping this backfield at J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill. And while Gus Edwards is a small threat in this offense, I'm not going to lie, he probably does have a similar type of workload to a guy like Devin Singletary. J.K. Dobbins has insane draft capital, probably will not be moved on from it if he has a good season this next season. And we've seen him play pretty well before. I mean, look at his first season in the NFL before the ACL tear. Was the running back 17 in standard scoring and went on a huge tear the second half of the season, touchdowns in every single game, and was a very efficient running back with over 6 yards a carry. Then in 2022 comes back, again despite dealing with nagging injuries after a torn ACL, and averages another 5.65 yards per carry. To put into perspective how special that is, Nick Chubb's best season as a running back, and I repeat, his best season, was 5.6 yards per carry. He's a similar type of running back to Nick Chubb, where Nick Chubb does not really get much receiving volume. J.K. Dobbins is not going to get too much receiving volume either, especially in an offense predicated on the run. But even still, I think J.K. Dobbins provides a very ample floor at the running back position, and somebody going at the running back 16 right now, despite only being 24 years old, I think is good value for at least the next year or two. You could buy J.K. Dobbins now, get 3 years of great production at the position and then sell when he is 27. I think that is absolutely fine. And also, side note, we do see this offense get a lot better through the draft. I mean, we have OBJ coming in, who I don't really think is a great option at this point in his career. And I'm saying that as a huge Giants fan, but still nonetheless a good player to have for their rotation. You still have Rachaad Bateman, who has been dealing with injuries pretty much his entire career, but if he stays healthy, does have a lot of promise. And then they draft Zay Flowers in the first round, somebody again with a ton of promise, a great crisp route running. And then you also have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. So I think this offense has a ton of weapons. We might not see as many touchdowns go to J.K. Dobbins, but there will be more touchdowns in this offense. So even if the percentage is lower for J.K. Dobbins, the overall amount of touchdowns will be higher. I could see J.K. Dobbins landing with about 8 touchdowns this next season, and if he does, that is again absolutely fine. Well, his career high in targets is only 24. If we can see 35 targets from J.K. Dobbins, that is more than enough to put him as a high-end RB2. And I think that is fine. Right now, running back 16 on keep trade cut, and that's what makes J.K. Dobbins a top secret winner of the 2023 draft on 2023 free agency. Last player, the most important player, it is Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, what a winner. Oh my god. People were expecting the Cowboys to draft Bijan Robinson. They were top 3 in the odds to go out and draft Bijan Robinson. They were top 3 in odds to go out and draft Jahmyr Gibbs. None of that happens because Jahmyr Gibbs sniped at 12, Bijan Robinson taken at 8. Tony Pollard is now left all alone in this backfield. They move on from Zeke, cutting him because his contract is too large. Now the only other running back on their depth chart is Malik Davis, and they do bring in Deuce Vaughn as well in the 5th round, but I don't think that is really that huge of an addition. Yes, a good, very, very shifty player, but he's only 5'6". He will come in for relief for Tony Pollard, but we've seen Tony Pollard produce despite having Ezekiel Elliott, a former top 5 pick in this offense, finishing as the running back 8 last year, having over 1,000 rushing yards, over 5 yards a carry, on 193 total attempts, which is great. Also gets another 55 targets to add to that, with another 371 yards, 3 touchdowns. This is a running back that is set to explode this next year, and yet right now he's coming off the board as the running back 11. It does make some sense because Tony Pollard, now 26 years old, you probably only have a year or 2 of great fantasy production at the position, but those 2 years will probably be worth more than the running back 11 in Dynasty. Personally, for me, I can't justify moving him up much above this, but that 2 years of production will result in massive explosions in Dynasty. I mean, this is somebody who was the running back 2 from weeks 10 to 16, and I know that seems like a weird sample size, but in week 17, he was injured against the Tennessee Titans. In week 18, they barely played him, only giving him 7 carries. So we do see Tony Pollard having the potential to be a top 5 running back in his offense for the next 2 years. And if you can get that as a contender in Dynasty, that is something that will give you a positional advantage for the next 2 years. And 2 years, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but 2 years is a ton of time in Dynasty. 2 years is the potential for you to win 2 championships or a championship and finish runner-up. Then you can worry about the future, but for now, I think Tony Pollard, one of the biggest winners, a top secret winner, and although not many people realize it because he hasn't even moved up 1 spot over on Keep Trade Cut, he is one of the biggest winners. I think he's absolutely worth the investment. But anyways, guys, that's gonna be it from me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go down and give this video a like. I'm answering every single comment. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know down below about anything. I'm always here to help you guys out, and subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on so you don't miss another video. Again, it's the #1 way to support me. It's totally free, and you can always change your mind later. With that, though, guys, as always, have a good day, a good night, and a good life.